We've seen some big announcements, big automobile manufacturing companies getting involved, as I said off the top, in the Canadian mining sector. How does one develop those partnerships? And do you think we'll see more partnerships announced in the short-term future? Hey everyone, welcome to TDR. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Today we're talking resources. GM, General Motors, just made a big announcement getting involved in Canadian mining in recent weeks. And natural resources, commodities, hot, obviously, during these challenging times with the stock market for the foreseeable future. So we want to focus on this today, and we bring in, he's the CEO of First Phosphate, which trades on the CSC under the ticker symbol PHOS. Let's bring in John Passalacqua. John, good to see you. How are things?
Yeah, really good, Shad. Thanks for having me on.
So you're based in Toronto, over in Istanbul, Turkey right now for a big conference. First question is, I know there's been a lot of news regarding Turkey and the earthquake that's happened, but how are things over there and just the general consensus of how people are doing?
Well, look, I mean, I'm really sheltered. I'm just sitting at a hotel in Istanbul. I arrived 2 days ago. I've only been at the hotel. It's for a conference. The conference had been planned for a year. Conference organizers did a nice gesture in that part of the revenues of the conference are being donated to the earthquake victims. It's a phosphate conference. It's a conference that happens once a year. It's a CRU global phosphate conference. It brings the leadership of phosphate together once a year in a different city every year. This year it was done in Turkey, I was invited out to speak on the LFP battery. There's a special session tomorrow. I'm keynoting the LFP spotlight session next tomorrow. I've been here for 2 days. It's mostly fertilizer phosphate, but I could tell you it's like everyone's just been talking LFP battery all day long. It's kind of nuts. Yeah, well, it's going to have such a big impact on the phosphate world that it certainly is the talk of the town.
How much, for those that are trying to understand and learn, especially when we try to recruit new, younger investors that have traditionally looked at mining as, let's face it, in today's day and age, they want everything to happen immediate. But when you see governments talking about electric vehicles being absolutely mandatory within a 10-year timeline, explain to me, when it comes to natural commodities like lithium, phosphate, what does the trajectory look like over the next 5 to 10 years and how much it'll grow?
Well, look, I mean, there's going to be massive demand for electrification for batteries. And the one limiting factor, the bottleneck and all of that is, the ability to have materials to make these batteries. And that's why, like you said at the beginning of the interview, hey, look, a number of auto manufacturers have made some great leaps into Canadian mining. And they're doing that so that they can secure raw materials because they know there's going to be a shortage and everyone's starting to hoard them. So there's not going to be enough of them to go around. Probably electrification targets are going to be backdated a little bit. We're probably not going to hit our emissions targets by the times that we want them to be. But
really?
We're all doing our best. But yeah, it's really the limitation on raw materials. I mean, in phosphate, it's not it's just like any other raw material. It's not about taking the raw phosphate out of the ground, but there's purification steps involved, and there's capital involved in that, and it has to be done to a certain spec because you require very high purity. So getting these minerals right out of the ground already is a big challenge. There's not enough of them to take out of the ground. But the second and most important challenge is the further purification before they can actually become usable in the batteries.
When you talk to different government officials, how much of a, concern and priority is it right now with what you're doing? I would think it would be a high demand, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a high demand. Sometimes I think we expect a little bit too much from our government officials. They're great at setting.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean that with all due respect, right? They do a great job in terms of setting the targets, what we need to do, what we need to get there. But then it's up to industry to fill in all those gaps. And it's going to be quite difficult for industry to meet these high criteria that are being set. It is the right way to go. I think the government officials are doing the right things. But yeah, there's between the talk and sort of the reality. There's a hell of a lot of work for us in industry to be doing. It's a great time to be in this space. There's just so much work for everybody. There's so much opportunity. And that's why we're in here.
That's encouraging. Let's find out a little bit about you, your background. You have a long, lengthy career in the capital markets. You've been involved in the tech industry back in the 90s. You've run your own family office, now involved in phosphate. First Phosphate, as I said, trades on the CSC. You describe yourself as a mining company, but also a technology company. Can you elaborate on what I mean by that?
Yeah, so and thank you for pointing out my background. I've got a very diverse background, but I really cut my teeth out of business school in the mid '90s as a technology professional. I was running internet websites at the time, which were portal websites. I used to speak around
Yeah.
the world on this new thing called the internet, right? I was guest speaker. I'm guest speaker on Phosphate. Back then, I was guest speaker on the internet, right? And so I've seen it evolve since the very beginning of the technology. I've always been very tech savvy since the days of Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. I could probably still outplay in one of those games if you ever want to go at it, just like Pixels. If you've seen that
Yeah,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of me. But anyways, basically, so when I look at phosphate, when I look at mining, when I look at the LFP battery, when I look at the EVs, I'm looking at this as technology. When we're
Yeah.
extracting minerals from the ground, we're extracting technology resources. We're extracting the lifeblood of technology. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I think that's the right perspective. I don't have my head in the mine. I've got my head, downstream. I'm looking at the battery. I'm looking at EV manufacturers. I'm looking to service that technology client. So yeah, that's
Which
I think
I
the real
think
difference.
which I think is so important in this industry. I think to garner new interest with new investors. It's down the road and what this can become and what it transpires into. Do you find that the right stories are being told the right way within this industry right now, or do you think there needs to be improvement?
Are you talking in the mining industry?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Look, I think the approach that First Phosphate is taking is the right approach for all of these mining companies. I think just taking something out of the ground and expecting to sell it, I don't think that's the way to go anymore. Because that when you get that mineral out of the ground, it's got lots of impurities in it. There's still that's just the beginning step, and then you've got another 5-10 steps to go before that material can then end up in a battery. And maybe I'll just walk you through that a little bit. So you take phosphate out of the ground, for instance. Okay, so you got phosphate at 5-10% out of the ground. Now you have to beneficiate it, meaning you have to concentrate up to 40% within its host mineral called apatite. Okay, so that's one mining operation to do it. And you're
okay,
dealing with separations of other elements too. We're separating titanium. We're getting a secondary recovery of titanium, a third tertiary recovery, if you will, of iron. But then we take that concentrate and we've got to bring it to the port, and we need an industrial space there, and we have to purify that into what's called weak phosphoric acid that then goes to merchant grade phosphoric acid. At that point, that's what you can sell for animal feed or for fertilizer. But to go to battery, we got to go to another level up. Then you got to go to what's called purified phosphoric acid, food grade. If you got a can of Coca-Cola there on your desk, just look on it. You'll see phosphoric acid in there.
100%.
If it goes into fire extinguishers, it goes into things like pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, water treatment, paints, food preservatives, whatever, right? So that's food grade. Now that's for human consumption. But now if you want to get into battery grade, you got to go one step ahead. You got to go into what it's called battery grade phosphoric acid. The specs on that are not even defined. They're kind of defined by your manufacturer. But generally speaking, and this is what I got to speak on tomorrow here at the conference, is you got to strip out all the metals in there, because obviously if this is going into a battery, anything that has conductivity to it is a no-no, right? So you got
Right.
to strip out all the metallic elements, and you got to strip out sulfur. Then you're sitting at battery grade phosphoric acid. Okay, but now what do you do with it, right? So now you want to make lithium iron phosphate cathode active material, which is one of the more complicated chemistries out there. It's much more complicated than NMC chemistries. Now, what you need phosphoric acid to do that. You need lithium hydroxide, and you need iron sulfate. So it's another three materials that you have to bring together. You have a few processes by which you can make that LFP cathode active material. There are many of them. They're proprietary. And then after you do that, you got LFP cathode active material, and then that you have to integrate into a battery cell, into a battery pack, into a battery, into an EV. So I'm just trying to give you what I just did there in 1 or 2 minutes. I gave you the whole spectrum from mine all the way down to EV. And so if you're not conscious of that, you're not going to do a good job. You're not going to be able
Yeah.
to service
Well,
the.
that's what I wanted to ask is like, how do you differentiate one company to another? Like, is this being done by all companies? Like, how do you like, I don't want to say how you can tell, but is this being done properly the right way by all companies involved within the sector right now?
Well, okay, I'm as you know, Shad, I'm focused on my own business.
Of
I kind of
course.
see what else is out there. I think to me the models that I like the best are the models kind of like what we're working on. as we developed the model around First Phosphate, we thought the model was definitely to have an integrated approach where you're taking that material out of the mine and you're moving it down the value chain to a point
Yeah.
where you're comfortable that you can then pass it on to somebody. If you're like, if I pass it on here, is it going to work for the next guy? Nah, here. So we take it, we take the phosphate, we beneficiate it, we turn it into purified phosphoric acid, and we turn it into LFP cathode active material. Then at that point, we say, you know what, our competencies have ended. We've done a good job. We then pass that on to somebody like what would be the CATL, which is who Ford wanted to work with, right?
Yeah.
That goes then into the battery cells. The battery packs them into batteries. Now, the deal with Ford and CATL, it's interesting, but it's only a deal around the battery cell, right? But what goes into the battery cell is LFP cathode active material. I did not hear that addressed in any of these deals. That LFP cathode active materials still is going to come from China. And guess what? There's not going to be enough of it for export from China very soon.
Interesting.
Because even at the phosphate conference, we're all talking about it. There's no more phosphate coming out of China. There's no purified phosphoric acid coming out of China. And the reason for it is it's all being used internally for the LFP battery. It's being used internally for fertilizer. And at some point, they're not going to have enough LFP CAM for the rest of the world because they got their own electrification targets to meet, right?
So like a lot of investors, they're familiar with lithium as a critical element in rechargeable batteries. Are you saying like phosphate is just as critical of an element as lithium to create EV batteries?
Look, I can give you my opinion, and it's only my opinion, and I'm sure people would debate it. I believe when I looked at it, I believe that you have about 200-300 companies out there in lithium, either public or private. We're getting a lot of them. We're going to need a lot of lithium. But when I look at phosphate, how many companies are out there in phosphate? And like us, strictly focused on the LFP battery. When I look worldwide, there's only one company. It's First Phosphate. And I've seen all the companies out here at the phosphate conference. They're mostly all into fertilizer, and they're kind of looking at the next shiny object with it, which is LFP. And I'm like, guys, it's great. Go for it. But whoops, I don't know. Did I cut off there?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here still. Great. Go ahead.
I'm telling everybody, I said, like, look, guys, it's great. Like, go after the LFP battery if you want, but always remember, you'll be fundamentally always a fertilizer company. 5% of your sales might go into LFP. You will never be able to fulfill and to supply the needs of the technology customer like we will when we're 100% focused on phosphate. So I do believe that we are the only company that I know of worldwide focused 100% on the LFP battery. And the pinch point is going to be massive in purified phosphoric acid. I hear some of the gigafactory guys talking all day long. They're like, oh, we're making this, we're making that. And they're focused way downstream here. They don't know what the elements are that have to go into their process. And they're saying things like, phosphate's abundant. I'm like, yeah, okay. You try opening up your electric gas tank, taking a bag of fertilizer and dumping it into your EV. And if that's going to power your EV, that's not the way it works. You got to create purified phosphoric acid. So purified phosphoric acid, Chad, there's only 4 companies in the Western world that can get you up to battery grade purified phosphoric acid, and nobody will license out their technology to do it. Right.
So let's talk about the actual mining project then. What's the economic potential and the expected timeline when the project may be commercialized?
Yeah. So, obviously getting a mine into production, there's timelines around that. Generally to put a mine into production, you're lucky if you get it down to 3 years. You're looking at, somewhere between 3 and 5 years. We're lucky that we're working very, very closely locally with the municipality and all the various stakeholders. And that, I believe that we're very welcome in the area that we're working in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. So that helps us to accelerate things. And so, we hope to be able to get there. We see the electrification really taking off, and the real need about this, the real sort of spike there on the curve being about 2027, 2028. And we hope to be able to hit and land at that same point. But we got to be ready by 2028, 2027, 2028. We definitely need to be ready by 2030. And if we do that, we're going to capture a massive portion of the market. And it doesn't matter, whatever we produce is going to be uptaken. There's still going to be a massive shortage of LFP cathode active material. We just cannot produce enough of it. Yes. Even
in 6 to 7 years from now.
Well, yeah. If you look at electrification targets by 2030, and you assume that 50%, 90%, 80, 90, 70 to 90% of vehicles will have to run electric by then because of various mandates. And you assume that LFP battery is going to be 50%. The curve starts going up pretty quickly.
Yeah. We've seen some big announcements, big automobile manufacturing companies getting involved, as I said off the top, in the Canadian mining sector. How does one develop those partnerships? And do you think we'll see more announcements, partnerships announced in the short-term future?
Well, I think you're going to see them.
I love the smile and the grin.
It's interesting, what I really love about what I'm doing right now. And you asked me about, what did I do when I was younger in 1998 and being on the internet. The reason I was on the internet in 1998 because it was just such a beautiful world. Like people just connected automatically, right? Like,
Didn't they?
yeah, it was just like it was like a breath of fresh air. I'd be talking to people all around the world,
I
developing all
know.
these partnerships, and with the same things happening in this industry. Like I
Oh,
just
really?
I got onto LinkedIn just three months ago. I hadn't been on LinkedIn. I think I got almost a thousand followers or whatever now.
It's incredible.
And the people that are starting to follow and to contact me, and I'm not going to tell you who, but it's crazy. And
Oh,
and
wow.
just the quality of people that are coming out of there, the woodworks, and they're starting to watch us. So it
That's
reminds me of the internet
encouraging.
again. The internet was all about meritocracy. It was all about being who you could be, being the best that you could, and connecting with the best of breed and best of people, and just no glass ceilings, nothing. And I'm starting to see that again, and I'm feeling so charged again about this
That's
industry.
amazing.
And
I
it's
have to agree, and I concur when it comes to LinkedIn. I think the whole world needs to be on LinkedIn, and that's it, because everybody's just so positive on that
make sure
platform.
you
It's
look me
putting
up,
forth.
huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that's encouraging. So, what do they? And I'm not going to ask, what names or who's contacting you, because obviously that's information that you need to keep to yourself. But um, what are some notable things that you need to achieve? I guess to, develop some of those interests and potential partnerships down the road, like on the short term.
Look, we have to be really careful, Shad. Like, most of these companies now, everyone's going to start name dropping and this and that. And we don't want to do
Yep.
that. You don't want to get into a partnership until you're ready for the partnership, right? You don't
Yep.
want it to be like cannabis industry, all these flimsy offtake agreements and all this nonsense that never transpires. Like we want to make sure that what we do is real. There's lots of conversations going on between all the companies in the industry. Like everybody knows everybody, everybody's talking. Everybody's quite friendly. What we need to do is, we did the first step, right? We brought on board a major partner. We're starting to move from our 43101 to our PEA at La Colonial. So what I'm doing is I'm getting my house in order. So what does that mean? So
Okay.
when I'm sitting here from, the mine all the way up to the LFP cathode active material, in order to start having discussions downstream here with the battery cells, battery manufacturers, and the EV guys, I got to let them know that, hey, I'm serious back here. I'm not just, hunting some mining claims, right? Like I've got, I've moved into 43101. We're now moving into PEA. We've got a major international partner on board. All the things that show that you're serious, right? The way we present, the things that we do, the way we talk. I'm here, speaking at the world's leading phosphate conference. I've been asked that as a
Yep.
guest speaker. We're showing leadership. So we're doing all those things. All those things, make it so that, you're credible and you have something to present to people. So I'm finally quite happy that most of our own house is in order, like our upstream is in order, and I'm starting to have more downstream discussions, just very general, very light,
Yep.
in getting to know the community. And at some point when we're ready to make a move, or somebody's ready to make a move and propose something to us, it's going to be us that has the ability to make things happen. Like I want to put myself in a situation or in a position, or a company into a position where people say, wow, if I want to make something happen and I want to make something happen properly and right, boom, it's First Phosphate I got to talk to. And that's starting to happen.
So one of the things, any investor, they want to see, like, what's the team that's in place and who are some of the notable names associated. Maybe touch on that. I think investors would find this interesting. You've really recruited a lot of some pretty high profile names associated with the company. So why so much interest has been garnered because of that?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, a lot of companies, they put names on their board, or they put names in their management because they want to sell the names. But I can tell you that everybody who's on our management team, on our board, on our advisory team, there are people that I talk to almost on a daily basis. There are people who mentor me. I'm not above mentorship. There are people who help me. There are people who open doors. There are people who guide the company. They're not just there as a pretty face. And I'll give you some names. Like we got Peter Kent, who's the president of the company. Peter Kent, as you know, he was the ex-minister of the environment for
Right.
Canada. So,
Big name.
well, it's a big name, but it's a big knowledge base, right? Like Peter, and he's a very humble man. He's very helpful. Anywhere he goes, people know him, they like him, they respect him. They see him as a real people person, and that's important to me, right? But he helps us out a lot. He was around when some of the he was minister when some of the environmental regulation was written, and he knows what we need to do, what we have to be careful of, how we need to act, and he guides us, right? So he guides the organization. That's really important. Then we have Larry Zeifman. He's an auditor. He's our chairman of the board. I mean, he audits about 20 public companies, so that's a very strong symbol of governance for the company, right? And he keeps everybody in line. He keeps me in line. He keeps all of our shareholders in line, our management, everybody sets the expectations. That's very important that you have proper governance. So Larry, hands down, is a strong pillar of the company. And then we have a number. We got Gilles Laverdiere, who's our geologist, over 40 years of mining experience in Quebec. He's done phosphate for over 10, 15 years. He and I put together the plan, which was to secure all the claims between the port of Saguenay and within 300 kilometers north of the port of Saguenay. We secured all of that. We did that very quietly. We did that through talking to prospectors, mag studies, studying everything that was out there. So that's something that Gilles and I did together. We've got Pierre Poufal, world's expert on sedimentary phosphates. He's doing an LFP study for us. He's at Queen's University determining whether our phosphate rock is appropriate for the LFP battery industry. So wait for that to come out. That's a study that's going to be out very soon. We've got other people like Yves Caprara. Yves Caprara was the ex-CEO of Prayon, the company that we now have the agreement with. And so, he helped us to negotiate that agreement. He got us to the right place. And he guides us on phosphoric acid. He knows it inside out. He's accompanied me here to the conference. He's made numerous introductions to the world of phosphate. We've got Bernard Laplante, who was basically the founder of REN Phosphate, which is another company that has a wonderful reserve of phosphate a little bit further north than us. He founded that company, so he's helping us with the to-dos, the don'ts, getting us connected. So and the list could go on and on and on. There's a number of
a strong team.
Yes, and strong in that they help me every day.
That's good. I wanted to wrap things up. There's been some recent price softness in the wholesale price of lithium after what was an incredible 12x run since the mid 2020 mark. Would you say, are your company's fortunes tied to the price of lithium at all, or not really?
Well, look, so to give you a little bit of a background, maybe on the LFP battery, lithium iron phosphate battery. In general, the amount of lithium that goes into a lithium iron phosphate battery is about half the amount that goes into an NMC battery. So we're still, very pegged to the price of lithium. It's about, it could be almost about 50-60% of the total inputs that go into the lithium iron phosphate battery. So lithium is important. The price of lithium is expensive, but the other portion of the battery is not taking cobalt, it's not taking manganese, it's not taking more lithium. So overall, the price of an LFP battery is about 33% to 50% the price of an NMC battery. And I'm sorry, when I say battery, I don't mean battery. I'm saying cathode active material, right? Okay. So that's lower. So it translates through the whole the whole value chain. Okay. So then that's why there's been the move to lithium iron phosphate batteries, because it is cheaper. But yes, indeed, we do need lithium to make the lithium iron phosphate battery. Lithium is it's a base precursor, if you will, for mostly all of these batteries.
So long term, just the cost is going to be front and center, but that's kind of the angle as to one of the important aspects as to why you're doing this.
Well, so, look, it's not my decision, right? I think the market has spoken. When you look at all the announcements over the last year and a half from all the major, auto manufacturers all over the world, and we're not talking just America, we're talking Europe, we're talking Asia. They've all said, look, we're all moving a portion of our production to the LFP battery. They're not necessarily moving off of NMC, but they're just, they're kind of splitting it 50-50. And they're making the right choice because, for the more limited uses, the city driving and all that, where you don't need the huge power boost, the lithium iron phosphate battery is better than anything. And it's good because it gives you that range that you need within the city. It's non-toxic. It can be recycled. It's
Which is
got
a
low.
huge thing, like especially amongst investors right now. I think the biggest question is like, what happens to these batteries? Do they throw them away? Are they recyclable? Like, is it good for the environment? Which is something that you and I probably overlooked growing up. But as far as new generation investors, that's at the forefront when making an investment decision for a lot of them.
Yeah, look, I think all these batteries will be recyclable in some form or another. I think it's all going to get figured out. We got to kind of look to China, because they've been out there with these batteries a lot longer than we have, and they've been stockpiling them. They're starting to find ways to recycle them. But what's most important about the LFP battery, I could tell you, is the safety. It's got superior fire safety. And what they're starting to do now, they're looking for a battery for mass adoption, right?
Mm.
They're looking for that good middle class battery, just like the station wagon used to be in the 1950s and the 1960s. So they're looking for an ability to find something they can put a warranty on. This is an auto manufacturer, something that's stable, something that's got the long life like the LFP battery does. And it's a perfect battery for a good city middle class kind of car that can just really kick off mass adoption. So that's why they've all moved to it, right? It's not going to completely displace NMC. There'll always be a place for NMC in some of the higher need usages, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful sort of all round kind of battery.
Well, the biggest takeaway I get from here is the demand that's going to be required, and you're one of the early adopters. Agreed?
Yes.
So if you're sitting in front of a group of investors and you talk about the overall, I'm a big believer in if you can educate investors, it's the best way of basically selling yourself. So if you had to sit down with a group of investors right now about the growth of the industry pertaining to phosphate and a lot of these raw materials, what would it be?
Well, I mean, you look around and you look at all the other materials that are needed for the battery. You look at nickel, you look at zinc, you look at cobalt, you look at manganese, you look at lithium, you look at copper, you look at other commodities like gold, and they may be scarce, but you can find them almost anywhere in North America. You look at phosphate, and it's very difficult to find. It's probably, in a certain sense, it's one of the scarcest materials in the sense that when you evaluate scarcity in terms of, is it readily mineable, and where can you find this ultra pure phosphate that goes into the LFP battery? There's only one spot, and it's in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec, and we've gone in and we've covered off all the claims in the areas where it's most feasible to exploit it. Like, you can find it in other areas, but it's just hard to move, right? It's a big clunky commodity. It's almost like a gravel mine. So if you're not sitting close to infrastructure and feasibility, or where you have to build a lot of extra infrastructure, you're in trouble. So I think the takeaway to investors is, look, there's First Phosphate. It's out there. It's got a moat around it. It's going to be the one company that is going to become, I believe, sort of what the Nutrien or Mosaic is to fertilizer, to a bag of fertilizer. That's what we're going to take. We're going to take from mine all the way to a bag of cathode active material. And the same way that these fertilizer guys go from mine to bag of fertilizer, right? And if you could find me another place or another company in North America that can do that, by all means.
Wow. So if you have a scarce material, and if successful when it comes to your drilling site in Quebec, what's the growth potential here? What are we looking at?
Look, we're just sitting down and we're starting to do our numbers. The numbers are staggering. I don't like to put things out there to the market right now, but
I hear you. I hear you.
We're talking the next $1 billion industries that are going to be created around batteries. And if you think that LFP is going to become 50% of the battery use in North America, and right now North America produces pretty much zero LFP cathode active material. And if you look like at a company like, First Phosphate, that it's going to have the phosphate going to be able to actually fulfill because of now of our agreement with Crayon, and we're going to be able to create the LFP cathode active material. We've got a strong core competency out there in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec. We've got, the green hydro. We've got the cheaper hydro. We've got the feasibility of, we got the port space at the Port of Saguenay, which is hard to find. We've got the phosphate. We got the iron sulfate that's going to come off of our titanium reserves. And, all the only element that we need to blend in right now is the lithium. We've got the ability really to dominate that market inside of North America. We don't need to capture more than 10-20% of that market, and it's going to be massive. And we could capture all of it if we really decided to go for it. I just don't want to be that, expansive right now. But just capturing even 5% of that market is massive.
Yeah. Well, put two and two together. Great story you have going on here. And congrats, obviously, on the project itself. And best of luck, obviously, moving forward. But I appreciate you checking in. Say hi to all my friends in Turkey for me. I hope everything's doing well. But most importantly, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, no, great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm doing my presentation tomorrow.
Good.
I'll provide you guys an update. And, thanks, Shad. I really appreciate you and your investors. And, any questions, anytime, that's what we're here for. We're here to answer the tough questions, and we're here to get stumped once in a while and to come back to you with the right answer if we don't get it right. But we're here to maintain a really strong, investor communication moment with you and your investors, and, to just see us along this ride together. And really
love a CEO who's open-minded and always wanting to learn. Great feedback. But listen, again, appreciate the story. This is great, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shad.
All right, thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.